Hello, beautiful soul. It is David Ault. And once again, thank you. Thank you so much for pausing and taking a few minutes of your time to share with me here on The Gathering. It's always a humbling and a great experience for me to be invited to speak on the road. Those opportunities provide me to be face to face with crowds and people that normally I don't get to do that with. And recently I returned from Asheville, North Carolina. And many of the people in the crowd, many of the people that I had the privilege to speak one on one with, had endured one of the great cataclysmic occurrences, a hurricane that swept through there last fall. If you are up on that or aware of that, that particular hurricane was something so unprecedented for that area that not only were they unprepared for that, but there just was no human explanation as to the confluence of all the things that brought about destruction of human lives, destruction of property, of just loss after loss after loss. And so you can imagine what it's like to have gone through that and to still show up in like a spiritual environment, a spiritual environment that continues to offer solace, but also a teaching that tells us that everything is in divine order. And to do so, not with insult, not with dismissal, but invitationally to remind one another that even in the most horrid of human circumstances, there is this unfailing essence, this steadfastness of an infinite design, an infinite intelligence, a connection that is never severed from that which is source and absolute love. And wow, to have to reconcile that, particularly when you are someone who has gone through those things. And many people are going through those things in such huge variety. I have friends overseas who are navigating great financial loss. I have many people stateside who have now lost their predictability in employment, something that they didn't see coming because of government mandates. And they are navigating whole new terrain about what they're going to do in terms of career. There are people who are going through new diagnosis. There are people who are going through so many different unexpected things, and it elicits a sense of fear and terror within them. And those feelings are not wrong. And at the same time, those feelings and those experiences in this human condition still do not erase the validity of that spiritual principle that tells us that God is all that there is. Here becomes the work. Here becomes the work not just for me, but for you as well. For those of us who are looking at how do we hold these two seemingly incongruent things, this human suffering, these challenges, this mystery that seems insurmountable, along with this principle, this this foundational truth that tells us that the only reality is God. And I take that as my, I will say my mission, my opportunity to never show up like I did in Asheville this past weekend and sweep under the rug with any kind of platitude about what these people have endured, but to find a way to be willing to continue to open up and to open up and to open up in ways that can bring that principle, that awareness of the infinitude of grace and love, and have it be something that doesn't diminish the human experience, but takes the human experience and wraps it in grace and understanding. Did you follow that? It isn't about saying, don't think that way. It's about bring what it is that you are thinking into this altar of grace and let us together find a way to dissolve the suffering and to elevate the remembering, to elevate the ways and the means and the opportunities to remember the unfailing presence of love. And then that remembering to allow that suffering that many who were experiencing post-traumatic stress from this event this past weekend, to allow that to begin to dissipate and not become an identity marker of who and what they are. How do we not only strengthen that for ourselves, but help others as well? Mine, I'm sure, like yours, is the continual devotional activity of practice, of listening, of sitting at the feet of those who inspire, of studying things that help realign my consciousness to the unfailing nature of that principle. And in finding ways, your way, my way, in helping one another remember that. Currently, mine is studying old Buddhist text. There is one by Longchenpa, one of the famous Buddhist teachers, back in the 13th century, about resting in the nature of mind. Very simply, it's this: what you are is the sky. Another example, just as Rumi told us that we were the ocean, Longchenpa is saying we are the sky. Sky, boundless, sky, representational of the all, the truth of the fact that we are pure essence, that we are love itself, always have been, always will be. When you use the mind, the thinking mind, the conceptual mind, it is filled with phenomena. Phenomena equals clouds. Phenomena equals the clouds represent the horrors, the ups and downs, the challenges, not just within our own lives, but of all human condition. To rest in the nature of mind is to rest in the awareness that the cloud, the phenomena, comes into the field of the sky, but it does not dismiss or eradicate the sky. It's just phenomena. And when we do not own the phenomena, when we do not harness the cloud, when we do not harness the trauma and turn it into an identity, but we rest in the nature of just observing these things, the comings and goings of the human condition. And we are loyal to remembering, staying awake to the idea that what we are is the sky. Then the phenomena passes. We do not become so identified with loss that we turn our lives into one protective paranoia, eccentric action after another. We do not change the nature of what we are as sky. We just recognize that this is a part of this particular journey, the journey of being human. This does not mean that we sit idly by while other people are caught in the conditioning that they are clouds, or they have self-identified themselves with their phenomena, but that we find the way to help create reconciliation, recognition within them, to lift the attachment of identifying with the phenomena, the cloud, and helping them remember who they are. It's a conversation by conversation. It's a one-on-one. It is an opportunity after an opportunity. It is a soul meeting by soul meeting. It is a divine encounter after one divine encounter. It is one singular offering of a video that perhaps you are ready to hear. It happens over and over and again. That's why in the scripture it said, for those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Allow that calling, allow that calling to help them remember that what they are is sky. You and I have the opportunity to rest in the nature of phenomena, not to try to prevent the phenomena, but to recognize that phenomena, clouds, weather conditions, all kinds of disturbances will enter into the field of the sky, but it will never, ever, ever diminish the truth of who you are. When you can remember more of who you are rather than to self-identify as the cloud, then the clouds don't hang around as long. The residual aftermath doesn't become something that fills our conversation and our days for the rest of our lives, but it just becomes a part of an occurrence that enters in and exits out. This is the most ultimate beautiful gift that we can give not only to ourselves, but to others. Imagine that if you right now fully owned the fact that you were infinite, the sky, and you walked into situations of fear, of sorrow, can you not recognize or consider just for a moment that by your entering into these fields of grief and fear and suffering, that the vibration of your remembrance alone would help to soften, that the presence of your willingness to remember who all of us are by your own embodiment can change things. It allows us to be able to show up in service. It allows us to be able to show up fully in integrity with that principle, no matter what the nature of phenomena is. May we all do this. May we learn to rest and not fight the phenomena, but rest in the nature of mind that understands it too will not only pass, but it has no bearing on our power. It has no bearing on who we are unless we allow it to somehow cloud us in forgetfulness. May we remember.